Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO of Acelab, Vardhan Mehta. What's going on?
How we doing? Happy Tuesday.
Good. We should have done this we'll do this in person for the next episode since we're both in the same area. But really wanted to talk with you and learn more about your company. So let's kick things off. First, before we go into Acelab, tell us about your career heading into Acelab.
Yeah, happy to. Hi, I'm Vardhan. I'm a second gen architect, grew up in India. My dad's an architect, uncle's an engineer. I was obsessed with this profession, practice, and industry from a very early age. Used to go walk the job sites on Sunday mornings with my dad from when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and had like a very big appreciation for the industry. In that, there's I think like a lot of value in doing work where you can make you can create something and like make it exist out of thin air. And so I really appreciate that about the industry. And then eventually I decided to become an architect as well. Went to architecture school in New York, pulled a lot of all-nighters there, as you do in design school, helped me land a job at a top 10 firm in the city. There I worked on projects for the State Department, which were US embassies around the world, and institutional projects for MIT and Yale. Now, for better or worse, during my time in practice, almost all of my time was spent on doing stuff that I didn't go to design school for. So, namely, that was material research, product specifications, and working with building product manufacturers. And it was a mess. It was a very cumbersome and time-consuming process. I'd entered practice in 2016, and so it was a big sort of like reality check that like there are areas of this industry, unlike the CAD and BIM software that we use all day long, there's areas of practice which are still very sort of old-fashioned and lead to all of this administrative low-value work. But more than that, I realized it's a huge opportunity for innovation. So architects are responsible for over $100 billion worth of building product decisions every year in the US. And 3 out of 4 times an architect is recommending a product as an influencer to the owner, the developer, or the contractor, it ends up being bought on the project. And so, as an architect, as a second gen architect, the opportunity I saw here is that, well, due to this process being incredibly frustrating, I saw that for myself and other architect friends in the city, we were just like repeating product specs from project to project out of a lack of, bandwidth, time, knowledge, energy, all of the above. But I realized that as an architect, if you can help other architects and the contractors or developers to optimize their product selections on a project based on criteria such as cost, availability, performance, sustainability, aesthetics, that could lead to a better outcome for the built environment. And so that was the foundation for Acelab. As I started my grad school at Harvard, at the architecture school there, I met a team of architects who had similar experience and practice across Europe and Asia, and we co-founded Acelab to really build like a material hub for the industry. So an all-in-one platform where, regardless of what you're searching for, if you're trying to find a substitute, if you're value engineering solutions on a project, you can just go to a landing page where all of that information is readily available, and not just the information for search, but also the ability for somebody on the demand side of building products to be able to collaborate with manufacturers, suppliers, and distributors who make these things to get things like price quotes and lead times and samples and certification information and so on. And so that's really what we've built. It's a two-sided platform. One side is, again, architects, builders, and developers and so on who need access to this information first, and then beyond that, answers from the people that can help supply these things. And then on the other side, we've got the manufacturers and suppliers who are responsible for the product offerings.
And what would have been when building this company? What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced early on, and then how did you move past them?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge we realized, which was really the foundation of the company, was there wasn't a centralized database for building products. So I think, it's easy for people that use like tech in other areas, or, either in personal life or other areas of practice. It's easy to take that for granted, meaning, we have a data layer for anything that we're looking, if it's like ordering food, if it's looking for real estate, looking for flights and so on. But we realized that when it came to building products and the materials, there wasn't really a centralized database that's up to date automatically and being refreshed all the time, that's available online. So we built that first using AI, machine learning, and a team of industry experts. We built this database, which really acts as a foundation of everything else that we built on top of it. So that was the first challenge we solved. In terms of like numbers, what that means is over 100,000 building products that we have organized, naturalized, so that they're searchable by the attribute you're looking for. So if there's like a specific certification that's required, to comply with code in a city, or if you need to find, like a specific material option, all of those things are now that you can search with on Acelab, as opposed to having to go to hundreds of manufacturers' websites and looking at thousands of the product pages for these manufacturers.
And what like where do you see the future of the company going? Like what's your overall vision for I know you've been this is not a new business, right? Like so like where do you see it heading from here?
Yeah. So we started with architects, since the involvement of the architect on an average project happens very upstream. And then naturally, we started to see some of the users on the platform. Now there's about like 12,000 architecture firms using AceLab to manage all of their uh, building product related decision making. And then we naturally saw these folks also loop in the contractors and the engineers and the interior designers and the owners that they're working with, to have them review the same information. And we actually realized that a big challenge right now when it comes to material management on a project across all the different stakeholders is to be on the same page. And so that when things get revised, that information is being shared automatically through a central landing page with all the stakeholders, as opposed to having to look for the right version through, silos of data across like email threads and meetings and phone calls and, your local servers and SharePoint folders and so on. And so now the way we're expanding the platform is like really creating that firm library or a project library, which can be used by all the folks internally at a AEC firm, or it can also be shared externally with the other stakeholders. And all of this is available on the platform for free. So that has been like a big way that we've like broken into the architect segment over the last like 18 months. And then now we're sort of expanding the product offering to also include data and very valuable insights and information regarding code. Pricing is a big one, lead times, sustainability, and so on Acelab as well, so that it creates that utility for an owner, a contractor, interior designers, engineers to also be using the platform at the same time for the same project alongside the architect. So that's how we're going to expand the platform further.
And when you're building, like how do you like to interact with your customers? Like how important is that feedback that you get from them? And
Yeah.
what's the, I guess, your favorite way to receive that feedback?
Yeah, so I mean, we do like feedback sessions with our super users all the time. Right now, actually, we're about 30 days from launching our most significant product offering to date. So that's called the Firm Library, and that's essentially, we've built like an equivalent to Autodesk Cloud or Procore, but really meant for the use case of architects, engineers, and designers. What we do early on in the project that really feeds into the specs and the submittals and RFIs that will get flow more downstream. And so for that, what we're actually doing is setting up a group of 100 beta user firms, and these aren't just architecture firms, like these are also design build practices. There's developers who are doing the beta program with us. And the idea is to meet with them every week and really like, understand from their usage what is required for them and other folks like them for like a tool set like this. And I think like that has been a really effective way to organically build out the platform. I think like what we found is like when we really like pay attention to that feedback, it naturally leads to happy accidents as like the one I mentioned earlier, where the architects, ask for these collaboration-based features so that they can use Acelab as a presentation tool or tracking tool, reporting tool with the other stakeholders on the project as well. And when we actually did that, architects were adding more users to the platform by inviting them to have a look at the information that they've added into their workspace on Acelab.
How how do you kind of decipher what should get added to the future roadmap and what is maybe a nice thought
Yeah,
but not something you're going to pursue? Is there ever times where you're like, we actually know another product that
yeah.
could be a good fit for you, but we're not going to do that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like that's super important, and I think as an early stage startup, like we've had to encounter that a lot of times, right? Like for like a feature that like a feature idea that came up, is this a must-have or a nice-to-have? And then is this something that we need to build in-house? Is this a third-party integration, or is there like is this an opportunity for a partnership with another venture like us that's like trying to innovate in this industry? And so I think like that's where, our unfair advantage really shines as a team, which is that we're a team of architects. And so we do pay attention to our psyche as a team, and like really like take in that instinct and not take that either totally for granted or only rely on that instinct to make the decision, so that the risk there is like you can often be very emotional about the ideas that you thought about and you feel like are incredibly meaningful. So instead of that, I think like what we've done is anytime we've got a new feature idea, we're gonna really like stretch that to the extremes. And then we're going to say like, okay, well, here's extreme A, here's extreme B, and there's, like a middle of the road solution. And then we're going to take those three and show that to users. Usually the answer isn't, equal emphasis or likability to all three. Usually there's a clear winner. If there isn't one, then that, would start to warrant more investigation. I think like that's where the word lab in our name of the company is really important, in that we see new features and functionality and launches really as experiments. And there's a process that you need to follow to justify whether what the hypothesis is, how you're going to run the experiment, and where you need to stop with the experiment, and whether it makes sense to continue with that or you need to let go and you need to pivot. I think like again, like being from the industry helps a lot in that we're not looking at this space as an opportunity, just from like a financial standpoint. But I think we look at this and we're very proud of what we're doing. We are very focused on the mission that if if we have to improve the built environment, the most significant and profound way, one of them at least, you can do that is through the materials that go into our projects. But I think the challenge is with how complex that information is and how much information exists out there in the first place. It can be incredibly difficult for anybody to be a true expert in that. And I think like that's where we're doing a very uh, meaningful exercise in utilizing AI and natural language search to really like create that functionality for the industry. So you don't only have to rely on what you know as a practice, but you can tap into the expertise, the insights from from other folks like you. And everybody's trying to do the right or the same thing, which is to make the best product decision for the project.
As we wrap up here, what's next that really excites you with the business?
Yeah, I think for us the next thing is we're right now we're sitting at about 100,000 or so products in the platform. So we started out with architecture products, like really the envelope of the building. We're soon about to launch interior-based products as well. And then by the end of the year, we're going to 3x that to about 300,000 products live on the platform, for which you can search, in a very structured way. You can find all the information. It's up to date. You don't have to manage that. You don't have to upkeep or refresh that information manually. And this will be across architecture, engineering, and interior based products. And so I'm excited for this to really expand organically from being a tool that is being used by 12,000 or so architecture firms, which is about a third of all architecture firms in the US, to being something that is being used now by the other stakeholders on the same project team as well.
Well, I'm excited to continue the conversation with you and stay in touch. Please let us know of any updates that are happening, and really looking forward to those future conversations. But thanks for joining us here today.
Fantastic. Sounds great.